Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending Marine Science Day. We're excited to have attendees from all over the world with us today. My name is Vanessa Strom, and I will be your host for this session. In this session, we're going to explore careers in marine science. We will start with a short presentation from Tara Rudo, a marine education specialist with CBNERR at VIMS, followed by a Q&A session with several VIMS scientists and staff. Our panelists for the Q&A include Tara, Aaron Shields, a marine scientist at VIMS that studies seagrasses, Quinn Roberts, the manager of a research lab at VIMS that studies chemical oceanography, Jameson Gregg, a marine scientist in the Fishery Science Department at VIMS, and Reed Kirkpatrick, chief mate and vessel captain on the research vessel Virginia. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tara to get us started.
Welcome, and thank you guys for having us this morning. And we're going to start off by talking about some of the marine science careers that are available out there. And to kind of start off with what most people think of when they think of marine science, it varies quite a bit. So some people might think we're doing really great things and being in the water a lot of the times, which we are, and sometimes we're in the lab, but people look at us as environmental stewards and heroes. So in a way, we definitely are. And so it depends on who you are and what you think of when you think of marine science. But marine science is a very broad field of study, and it's broken down into various disciplines. And so we have a few of those listed here, ranging from geology, chemistry, over to physics, environmental science. And a lot of these disciplines are interdisciplinary. So that means if you're, say, going to college and you decide to major in marine biology, for example, you're not just studying biology, you're actually pulling information from all different aspects of marine science. So for instance, as a marine educator, I am teaching about biology and chemistry and physics. So I need to be able to pull from all of these different disciplines. And so a lot of the speakers that we have here today are very specialized in their field, but they definitely pull from other disciplines within marine science. Probably the first most people think of is marine biology. And so these are the scientists who are really studying marine organisms themselves. So whether that's the anatomy or the behavior and interactions of that animal with their environment. And this can also include the study of plant life as well. So Aaron Shields, she's definitely going to be speaking on that. But these folks are going to be spending a lot of time out in the field, but also back in labs. We have marine chemistry. So these, the chemists are the scientists who are really studying the actual water itself, whether that's going to be the physical components of the seawater, how it interacts with currents and movements and seasonal changes, and how it interacts with the atmosphere as well, and then also the marine life. And they're going to be working in labs a lot of the time, especially with water quality. They are going out in the field and taking samples and bringing that back into the lab to get analyzed. We have physics. So marine physicists are studying the actual waves and currents and tides of our ocean and how it moves over time. And so they actually might also look at things like sound and light and how it travels in the water. And this is important for a lot of marine life, like dolphins and whales, for example. And they're going to be out on our boats and they're using various devices. They might use things like buoys and gliders or AUVs. And also a lot of satellite imagery, so tracking those currents over time. And they're looking at how these currents impact our environment and our climate. So for example, the Gulf Stream, so how that keeps the East Coast of the United States nice and warm and even up towards the United Kingdom. So they're definitely looking at how the ocean affects our climate. So geology is another discipline. So these are scientists who are going to be actually studying the sediment and the ocean floor and the structure of that ocean floor over time. And they might look at things like the history of the ocean floor. So taking core samples, they can actually get a good image of how that ocean floor has changed. They can also look at human impacts on the ocean floor. So that picture on the left showing things like shipwrecks. And they can also track tectonic movements and tectonic plates. and a lot of the organisms like epifauna or infauna that call the seafloor their home. And they use different devices. They might use a grab box to sample just a few inches of the sediment, or they, again, are using those drills to drill further down to get a deeper sample. And they might even use things like side scan sonar. So that's capturing images of the ocean floor and mapping it and seeing the different elevation changes. So geology does a lot with the ocean floor itself. Environmental science, this discipline is very interdisciplinary because they pull from geology and ecology and biology, and they're mainly going to be looking at how humans have an impact on the environment. So whether this is pollution like plastics or chemicals like nitrogen and phosphorus, they can also be looking at disease and parasite and how that affects the environment. So things like harmful algae blooms. So environmental science is one of the most interdisciplinary fields of marine science. We have our engineering and technology field. So they are the geniuses who build and operate all of the instruments and machines that are used for marine science. So buoys and ROVs, even sometimes our drones. And you have to think about electricity and water do not go hand in hand. So they do a great job of finding ways to build these instruments and operate them in some of the world's toughest environments. Seawater is not very kind. And so they're doing a lot of the operations and the behind the scenes of a lot of those research trips. We also have marine operations. So they kind of are similar to our engineers in the technology field. So they're maintaining our fleet of research vessels. So like here at VIMS, we have a large fleet of those vessels that go out. So they're operating them, maintaining them, doing inspections. They also might work with our dive team and ensuring that their gear is up and ready to go and maintaining certifications and permits for that. So marine operations plays a huge role in marine science because they're the ones that really get it going and ensure that, you know, the research trips are going smoothly and then they can go smoothly in the future. So math and data plays a huge role in all of these disciplines, especially researchers where they need to use a lot of statistical analysis to prove their research. And so they also need to communicate it with the public. So they'll use various mapping tools, visualization tools. So there's lots of different programs out there, and those programs keep growing with technology growing as well. And so every aspect of marine science definitely pulls from the mathematics side of things. And so it does take some time to learn, but once you do, it does help communicate your research to the general public and an audience. We have education and outreach. So that's the department I'm located in. So these are informal educators most of the time, and they are really, their main purpose is to communicate these current research projects or current scientific data to the general public. So, you know, communicating sometimes complex issues to an audience where anyone can understand it. And they tend to do it in a interactive and really hands-on learning way. And even with COVID, might not be hands-on learning, but we're doing our best to still engage the public about how great marine science is and all the great work that these scientists are doing. And just in general, I mean, we've listed some of those disciplines and some of those marine science careers that are potential career paths for you, but there are many other careers related to marine science that people tend to overlook. For instance, if you're interested in serving in the military, so Marines and Navy and Coast Guard, for example, have branches and positions where you could be focused on marine science. So marine science technicians and biologists, even NOAA Corps as well. They do a similar type of thing that the military does. If you're a big fan of nature documentaries like myself, those filmmakers, they have to be familiar with the topic that they're shooting and really know that environment that they're in. If you enjoy seafood, so whether it's the chefs that prepare that seafood, or those fishermen and watermen that go out and catch the seafood that we consume. So they play a really vital role in marine science, especially when it comes to regulating and ensuring that we're having sustainable fisheries. So there's tons of marine careers out there. And, even if you're interested in chemistry and biology, remember, these are all interdisciplinary, and they do pull from one another, which is a great reason to definitely pursue marine science as a future career if you're interested. And with that, I can turn it back over to Vanessa for the Q&A and panel.
All right, thank you so much, Tara, for that very informative presentation. So now we'll start the Q&A session. If you have any questions for our panelists, you can put that in the chat. I wanted to start off with a question for all of the panelists. Like you talked about, there's so many different careers in marine science. So do you have any advice for early career scientists that are interested in marine science and how they select a discipline maybe that they want to go into?
I can definitely speak first if you guys want. So the reason I actually chose marine science education was because I was interested in everything. As an educator, you're always wanting to learn more. And with marine education, you get exposure to all those different disciplines, and you get to interact with all the great scientists here at VIMS and learn more about what they're doing. And that's the reason I chose education specifically. I wanted to not necessarily become an expert in one particular thing, but gain more of a broad knowledge of a lot of different topics. But it's very different for the educator side of things than the scientist side.
I did a general biology undergraduate degree, and so I didn't really know. I liked being outside, and I just kind of felt like I wanted a job where I got to spend a lot of time outside. So I took a wide range of classes in undergrad, and I had a professor in my senior year that taught plant physiology, and something just clicked with me with that class. And so that really got me interested in at least pursuing plants, and it kind of blossomed from there. So just, seeking out, if you're really unsure, seeking out a wide variety of classes, or and if you don't be afraid to change. I changed majors and it was fine. Really pursue your passions.
For me, I knew that I always wanted to go into marine science. So that's the major I chose, but I thought that I wanted to study sharks. And I took an opportunity working in an organic geochemistry lab my junior year. And I came into that lab saying, okay, I'm going to do this just to get experience, but I don't care anything about mud. I want to study sharks. I want to do this. And within 2 months, I had completely changed what I wanted to do. So, my advice is if you like marine science, get your foot in the door and then just see what opportunities you have and be open to anything. It could take you anywhere. So
that's exactly what I was going to say to follow up on Tara, Aaron, and Quinn's points. Keep your options open, try a little bit of everything, see what you like more than the other, and you never know. Like Quinn said, if you want to study sharks and next thing you know, oh, you're in a chemistry lab. So you don't know where it's going to take you, and just enjoy the ride along the way and just apply yourself at every opportunity that you can.
Yeah, for sure. Keep an open mind. Okay, Candace wants to know, what's the most helpful piece of advice that you were given as you were working on your career path?
I get asked that a lot, actually. For me, it was about volunteering. So whether that's, because I speak with a lot of like high school students and early college students, and they always ask this question. And I think, someone touched on, getting your foot in the door is a great opportunity. So whether it's volunteering at, if you live near an aquarium or a local museum or an organization like VIMS or CBNERR, they're always looking for interns and volunteers, and you get to learn a lot during that time. And you also get exposure to a lot of different topics and potential career paths. And it's a great networking way to network as well and meet a lot of people in that field. So if you have the ability to volunteer, I think that's always a great place to start.
And to follow up on that, I really do think it's the experience that will help you get somewhere and get involved in a actual career. And the only way to do that, you can't go 0 to 60 and all of a sudden just become a marine scientist. You have to either volunteer or start part-time. So it's getting your foot in the door with any of those opportunities that will help you build and grow to get fully involved into a full-time marine science career.
You know, as I'd mentioned before, I started working for an organic geochemistry lab, and I started by volunteering, but then they offered me a job. And then because I had that job, I was able to get internships in other labs, and it just, you know, opened up this whole other world and different sides of marine science to me. So definitely volunteer, you know, when you can. I know it isn't great to not be paid, but in the long run, it pays off.
Can you describe, because we've been talking about how marine science is so interdisciplinary, could you maybe describe an interdisciplinary experience that you've had either at VIMS or some other time in your career?
I do scuba diving for my field work, so I've had to learn a lot of skills through that, which is pretty different from, you know, the book learning part of things. I also never anticipated having to learn plumbing in my marine science career. But, you know, in grad school, I found myself spending a lot of hours at Lowe's buying PVC and fittings and learning how to put together these tanks in the greenhouse so we could, you know, have experiments with these flow through tanks and filtration systems, and so we could grow plants there. So that's something that I definitely never thought I would be doing, but was kind of just a neat little, you know, side experience that really helped my work.
And every day in the fisheries department, with the several surveys that our group operates, it's always interdisciplinary. It's biology, from taking lengths and weights of fish to what do we do with that data? And well, that gets used for statistical analysis and stock assessment. So everything kind of transitions from one to another. So there's a lot of different steps involved, and in between every station that we're sampling fish, we're also taking water quality. So there's little bits and pieces of everything involved. And I would say that probably goes for everybody's specifics here at VIMS as well.
You know, I would say from the captain's position that one of the greatest joys of our job is to be able to work with all of the disciplines. And so we get a little bit of everybody that comes on and takes the boat out. And so we're able to see how all the science works together. So I don't have specifically a marine science educational background, but having come into the industry and working with a little bit of each department has given us a good general overview of how the fisheries are doing, the water quality, and then and how it all ties together. And so it makes it extremely interesting, where it's exciting to come to work every single day and go out and do something completely different and then tie it all into the big picture.
I've done a lot of field work experiments in remote locations. You can see my background. This is from Antarctica. And when we design some of these experiments, we need to make sure that everybody within the group, you know, they might be a statistician or, you know, involved with physical oceanography or biological, to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. So sometimes just designing an experiment can be sort of complicated, but it is very interdisciplinary to get, you know, at the ultimate question. You need all sides of, you know, all kinds of answers.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that insight, everyone. Okay. This question is for Reed. How can people that want to work on a research vessel get their foot in the door?
It's a good question. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of time. So I came in with an English literature degree, not a science degree. And I actually started working in the commercial industry. So I worked with tugboats for a while. I worked on schooners for a while. but I got to see a lot of the industrial portion of how our world works. And I really wanted to do something more purpose driven. And so I applied, but it took me taking a lot of sea time and working as a deckhand on deck on vessels and going out and doing kind of lower jobs to build up my license and my credentials and my experience. And so even though I have an English lit degree, I hold a mariner's license, which is also takes time to build up, and classes, et cetera. So it takes time, but it's very rewarding.
Right, right. We have a question about travel and how that fits into everyone's careers.
So I've had to do a lot of travel, and that's actually, I think, one of the most amazing parts about being a marine scientist and being in my job. I've gone from Antarctica to Barrow, Alaska, the northernmost point in the United States. And there's some years where I've been gone for almost the whole summer, and there are other times where I might just do a week or two here or there. And sometimes you get to do a lot of local work, which is nice as well. But traveling is definitely a huge perk to this job.
Yeah, I've done with education, we're not going down to Antarctica specifically, but we do a lot of work mainly locally. But I did a lot of the traveling that I did in college. So I took a course in Iceland, learning about sustainable energy and that impact on the environment, doing some sea turtle volunteer work down in St. Kitts and Nevis. So at least my traveling experience, abroad traveling, mainly had to do with building my knowledge so I could teach about those topics a little better in the future than in my career that I have now.
Yeah, I like to tell people that I've been to 20 countries. I've only flown in and out of one. So the rest have been by boat. And that's a very unique and interesting way to see the world. And so it will give you a lot of opportunity to travel and absolutely take every chance you get.
Yeah, my field work has mostly all been local, but I've been able to travel through conferences. So just finding, conferences where you can hopefully find funding for and that you can present your research at. So I've been able to go to Thailand for conferences and all over the country for that. So that's another real advantage of these careers, I think, too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I think we are running out of time now, but I just wanted to thank our panelists for being here and helping us learn more about careers in marine science. Thank you for joining us.